As long as I can remember, I have seen spirits. I have heard my name called on several occasions, and it was quite scary. I have seen shadows, felt spirits touching my feet and tickling me. I finally prayed and asked Archangel Michael for protection, and to keep out the annoying spirits and only allow the good spirits in when I would go to bed at night. It is hard for me to understand what they want. I was told to talk to them, but I really don't know what to say. Sometimes people think you are crazy if you talk to them about visits from the other side. One evening I was in my kitchen. I kept hearing someone tapping lightly on my son's drums downstairs in the basement. My youngest son sleeps in the basement and he heard the same thing. I yelled down and said, "Sam, stop playing the drums." No answer, so I go downstairs and call my other son. I said, "Jacob, tell your brother to stop playing the drums." Jacob goes in the room in the basement where the drums are. He says back to me, "Mom, Sam is not here. Nobody is." I asked Jacob, "Did you hear someone playing the drums?" Jacob answered, "Yes." Off and on I would hear someone playing the drums, tapping lightly on them. At first it was scary until I figured it out. I did not put two and two together until many months later. My grandfather on my dad's side came and visited me all the time. As a child I was very close to him and I was going through a bad time. He lived in the basement when he was married to his second wife. Then I realized it was my grandfather letting me know he was around. The early years of my marriage to my husband Jim, we were looking for an apartment that was cheap and close to his work. This was 1971 in Ypsilanti. In the paper we found one that all he had to do was walk across the yard, down the field and over the railroad track, and he would be at work. The rent is what we liked the best. It was cheap. We went to see the apartment. It was in the basement of an elderly lady's home. She took us down many steps to the basement, and to the left of us was a door she unlocked, and we all went in. The kitchen was small, and the living room and the bedroom were actually one only, with a curtain drawn across from wall to have a bedroom there. In the apartment was two small windows, and the whole apartment was not very big, and it was quite dark even with the few lights on in there. I asked where the bathroom was. She took us out of the door to the apartment down this long, very dim hallway. To the right of us was another curtain, and behind that was a shower stall, then went to another room with a curtain, and that was the toilet and the small sink. Across from the toilet was a door in which she took us in there, and it was the utility room where she had a washer and dryer in there and many shelves and some big barrows sitting next to the washer. She told us we could wash our clothes and dry them or hang them up on the line that was hanging there as long as we kept the room clean. I told my husband that room was cold feeling to me. He said that was because it was the basement. My husband looked at me and said, "We will take the apartment." So the next day we packed up our things from our other apartment and took to our new apartment. We got all our things to the new apartment, and then my husband, who worked the second shift, had to get ready for work. I told him I would have plenty to do unpacking and putting things away. For days I would put our things away, and we got a lamp for the living room so there would be more light in the apartment, as it was too dim for me. That seemed to brighten up all the rooms since the apartment was so small. But we had no children, and with the price we could not go wrong. We had no phone while we lived there, but our landlady told us we could always come upstairs and use the one she had when we wanted to. We thanked her and went back to our new home in the basement. One night my husband woke up and woke me up and asked if I heard that noise coming from the utility room. I said, "No, what you talking about?" He said it sounded like something being dragged across the floor. I said, "No, I didn't hear anything." We stayed awake for a little while and nothing, so fell back to sleep. About a week later one night, I was not feeling well, so went to sleep, pulled the curtain back to let in the heat. I was woke up by a noise. I rolled over to look at the clock. It was nearly 3 a.m. It was long past time for my husband to be home. He was a drunk, so I figured he was out at the bars. Maybe it was my imagination working that I heard something, as I was very tired. I stayed awake waiting for my husband to come home and listening to all sorts of noises. I prayed a lot to the Lord to protect me until my man came home. Some sounded like dragging, some sounded like banging on the wall next to the head of the bed. I got out of the bed and sat on the sofa, pulled the curtain close. I wanted to go upstairs to use the phone, but too frightened to open the door. So I pulled a chair up under the doorknob to keep whatever was out there in the hallway and the other room from getting in. I stayed awake until my husband, who was drunk, came in around 4 a.m. When he banged up against the door, my heart went so fast I could hardly breathe. Then I heard him say, "Let me in." I went and removed the chair and flung myself into his arms, shaking. He didn't notice. He went to bed, and I was next to him after the door was locked and the chair under the knob. The next day we had a talk. He said to me, "I told you something woke me up one night. Now you will listen to what I say, right?" I said yes. We looked into the room where the washer and dryer was in the morning and didn't see anything out of place. No scratch marks on the floor. Nothing was out of order in that room. We checked the bathroom and the shower room, nothing out of order. One night I was so cold and so frightened I had to go to the bathroom at the other end of the hallway. I held it as long as I could, then I finally just had to open the door and go down the long, dim hallway to the toilet. Did my business not wanting to look into the laundry room. I hurried back to my apartment and locked the door. I felt like something was watching me while I was in the bathroom. Everything seemed to calm down, and so did we. My husband went to bed early, being drunk and all, and I had to go to the bathroom and take a shower. I did the shower first and then went to the toilet. The laundry room door was open and the curtain to the toilet was open a bit. As I sat on the toilet and looked into that room, my heart nearly stopped. I could see what appeared to be a man hanging from the neck in the laundry room, just swinging around limp. I got off that toilet, went to the apartment shaking, too afraid to stay there, flung open the door, ran up the stairs and outside. Our landlady came out wanting to know what all the noise was from. I told her that the basement was haunted. She laughed at me. Then she told me this story. Her husband was a drunk. He spent a lot of time in the basement being drunk, as she would not let him be upstairs. I asked if he slept in the little apartment when he was drunk. She said he might have. She did not chase after him. She said one day she went away and came back, had to do some laundry, and went downstairs to find he hung himself in the laundry room, and yes, I would be able to see the area where he hung himself when I was sitting on the toilet. I asked her with a shaky voice, what did he stand on to do this with? She told me she found one of those old barrows that was next to the washer rolled over near him, and so figured he used that to stand on. I told her of all the noises I heard since we lived there. The dragging, banging, and like gasping. She told me she has heard all that too when she has been in the basement. I told her I seen him hanging there. He looked human form to me. She said she has seen him down there too, and she just tells him to behave himself and goes on with her work. She told me he would not hurt me. He was dead. I told her I was not going to live in a place like this no more. My husband and I had to live there for a little longer. The TV went out, and the only thing I had that would make noise so I could not hear what was going on in the other room was the radio, which I played loud to drown out the other noises. One day I called my mom and asked if we could stay with them upstairs and pay them the rent we paid here. She asked why, and I told her, and we moved out of the small apartment and we went to my mom and dad's home. Sometime after that I went back to talk to the landlady and asked her why she didn't tell us about that before we took the apartment. She said she should have, but she needed the money, and if she would have said anything, no one would rent it. I never went back after that. I used to stay in a rent-out basement with my older sister who comes and goes very often, so that means I'm mostly alone. In Annandale, Virginia, the basement has all utilities provided, and the ceiling of the basement at parts has a low dip. The distance from the living room, bathroom, kitchen is only a few footsteps away from the bedroom I sleep in. There's a small staircase outside that leads the backyard into the basement from the back, and there's an indoor staircase that connects the basement to the home upstairs. This detail is important for later on in my experience. My sister stayed in the basement a month before I had decided to move into the same place with her. Shortly after I arrived, she decided to let me stay in the basement alone. To be, in her words, independent, while she stays with her little girlfriends. Of course, I was a little worried about staying down in the basement alone, but later on, the day after unpacking, I got to meet the landlords, who were very overprotective but kind of friendly. Nothing too terrible or tyrannical about them. So I decided that I should just suck it up and stay at the place, since the basement's rent is hell of a lot cheaper compared to other places up in Northern Virginia. A month and a half has passed and things seem fine, up until one night when I came home from work at around 7 p.m. I was in the kitchen making some delicious, independent ramen noodle in a cup. The landlord, female landlord, the wife, decides to come downstairs to see what I was up to. She does this very often when she notices I'm using a utility. We stood by the sink, next to a door that leads outside, and chit-chatted away, until I noticed the door behind her opening. My immediate reaction was, oh, that must be my sister coming in. The landlord looked behind her, and once the door opened halfway, there was no one there. Seeing how freaked out I looked as she was closing back the door, she told me, "Oh, ha ha ha, it's just the wind." And of course that night there was no wind. It was a still, hot summer night. I told her, well, there's no wind at all today, but okay. With that being said, she patted me on the shoulder and told me that she's going to bed, and went right upstairs, indoor stairs. And as soon as she went upstairs, I ran right into the bedroom, blast some YouTube videos off a playlist I had, and called it a night, too scared. A few weeks later, it was my sister's birthday. Around this time, I was away on a trip, so I was not in the basement for half a month. So some parts of this experience is also my sister's. She's okay with me sharing this. On her birthday, she received a big plastic helium balloon that she likes to keep behind the bedroom door. One day, she invited her best friend over to sleep. Her friend is a rational person that is usually calm. Her personality, when sleeping over, everything went well, except for when it was morning of that sleepover. My sister got up early to leave to go to work, and her friend woke up near 1 p.m. When her friend was all ready to leave the basement and was heading out to her car before she could make it into the kitchen to go to the outside stairs, she heard a rustling behind her. Immediately as she turned, the balloon was right behind her. Of course, she shrugged it off and thought, probably got caught onto my shirt. She took the balloon and threw it behind the door in the bedroom and continued her way into the kitchen. But as soon as she could even step a foot into the kitchen, she heard the noise and turned around. The balloon was right behind her. This time it really freaked her out, especially since there's a low ceiling dip that should have stopped the balloon from clinging onto her shirt if that were the case. So she grabbed the balloon, threw it behind the bedroom door, and continued on towards the kitchen as quickly as possible. But once more, the moment she reaches the kitchen, she hears the same rustling sound again. This time she reacted quickly. She snatched the balloon, threw it behind the bedroom door, slammed the bedroom door tight, and ran straight out of the basement and into her car. Later on that evening, same day when my sister was off work, my sister and her friend met up to have another sleepover, since I was still gone at the time. When they were laying in bed, my sister looked over to her friend and noticed the balloon was hovering over her friend. My sister jokes, "Haha, wow, you like that balloon enough to bring it to bed? Really? Come on." And my sister's friend nonchalantly replied, "No, it's been following me all day." Hearing this, my sister was a little startled, so she turned on the lights, grabbed the balloon, and popped it. And that was the end of that. After this balloon incident, I came home a few days afterwards. And this was when strange things picked up quickly started happening. At this time, summer has passed, creeping into the fall, and my sister went back to staying with her friend, so I'm alone again. It started with seeing a tiny bright white circle speck that would appear when I'm in the restroom doing my business, or when I was lounging in the bedroom. I tried convincing myself at this time, oh, it's just a fairy, how cute, it's following me, to calm myself down. I even tried looking around the room / doing eye exercises to see if the speck would follow along, but the speck didn't. The speck would float towards me at its own speed and distance and then just disappears or sometimes just lingers around. I will only see this speck when I'm in the basement. When I'm outside or in other buildings, etc., I will not see this speck. About 2 weeks after seeing this speck on and off, it all suddenly stopped. Around 2:30 a.m. I was lounging in bed watching YouTube videos. Quickly I noticed a black dime-shaped circle and dot shooting fast out of my pillow and into my shelf of clothes to my right. I jumped up the moment I saw it and immediately picked up my pillow and looked around. There was absolutely nothing. After this occurred, I texted my sister about it. She texted me back, ignoring what I texted her, asking if I would like to go get coffee tomorrow with her and a friend. Of course I agreed to hang out. The next day when I met up with her, I told her again about the black spot, and I told her of the speck I had also been seeing. She just shrugged it off and told me, "You don't need me to sleep with you in that basement, you'll be fine, you're just tired and seeing things." Of course I am well rested, but I just agreed to whatever she says. About a week and a half later after that incident, around 2:40 a.m., I was yet again lounging and watching YouTube videos. I had this odd feeling that I should look up, so I just decided to perk my head up from my pillow for my own amusement. However, I saw this strange fuzzy mist dust thing forming in a wispy sort of way right at the foot of my bed. I squinted my eyes and rubbed them, and it was still forming / misty in that spot. I quickly forced courage in me to just try and reach and touch the mist. As soon as I started reaching for it, it all disappeared. A little shaken by this, I kept telling myself it's just a cute fairy or a pretty angel or even just gnats or a crazy indoor dust storm. I lie back down and blast my YouTube videos again and fall asleep with the lights on. After this incident, things calmed down again. There were times when I would leave to work and the landlord would complain about how I left the bathroom lights on, living room lights on, when I know for sure I turned them all off. This upset me greatly. And there will be days I would sometimes see the speck. Eventually, I decided to move back down south with my parents. My job did not work out too well and I did not like staying in the basement, and the landlords were too protective. They always asked me where I'm going at all times. A month later, I finally moved out of the place to head back home, while my sister decided to stay in the basement for a few days before she moves out as well. To make things short for my sister's half of the story, the night when she decides to move out of the basement, once I had already settled in at my parents' home, she admits to me that she had a dream that night. The landlords, who are now in near 50s, used to have a 12-year-old daughter that died in that home. My sister also admits to me that before I had moved into the basement, she also had seen the same black spot that flew out of the pillow. She even admits to me that she felt watched when she passed the staircase that leads to the upstairs house. She even confessed to me that one of the days when she was home to sleep over with me at around 1:50 a.m., she woke up to a bright orb and wisp hovering in the room. It scared her very badly, and she never mentioned any of this to me out of knowing I will throw a fit and refuse to stay in the basement alone. I'm glad she confessed all of this to me. It shows I'm not the only one to feel uneasy. Thank you for reading all of this I have to share. I really would like to know what is this black circle we both saw shooting out of the pillow so fast? And if my sister's dream could have been true. The landlords are both near their 50s and refuse to have a child. When we bring it up,